Hi, we're back with another week of Touchdown coming at you from Schwadorf, Austria. I'm your host, Joel Turpin. With me today is Martin Marhold, my co-host.
Hello.
And we're going to recap a few of the Week 14 games, some of the big ones that we saw, and then talk a little bit about the upcoming games for Week 15. Get you started off with Philadelphia 34, Detroit 20.
Well, I think that the most amazing thing about this game was the weather conditions. It was really fun to watch, and everybody in when they watched Austrian newspaper forums and so on, everybody was talking about the weather actually, and people were talking about. Well, you don't see that in soccer when it's here, and so that's one thing you can love about football. They just don't quit when conditions are bad.
Yeah.
And I think at some point in the game, Pam Oliver, I think was the on the field reporter. She had like 6 or 8 inches of snow on the field.
That's crazy.
And it was really interesting to see that the teams both were struggling in the beginning, and then both adjusted. Just Philly did it a lot better than Detroit did.
Yeah, it was obvious that Stafford in particular was having troubles. He had a couple of fumbled snaps and just exchanges and things like that were giving him trouble in addition to the throws. Calvin Johnson just looked lost out there in the snow to me somehow. Detroit obviously had a bigger problem with it. And then, after halftime, Nick Foles, who had thrown his first, 2 interceptions of the season, in the first half, he came back and adjusted and started making long throws, which was really impressive. I mean, we've seen a lot of impressive stuff out of this young man, but that was one of the most, especially with the playoffs coming up and a Super Bowl in cold weather. It was. I'm sure
they won't have
heartening
snow
to
on the field because they have a long meeting there. But
of course, yeah.
Still, it's gonna be cold, and I don't know if Stafford was struggling particularly because of the snow itself, or partly because of how cold it was. Because a lot of his balls were sailing, and they were just not as accurate as he used to be, and. I don't know if you can attribute all of that to just the ball being wet and cold, but
it's hard to say. But in the end, of course, this was a very big one for both teams. Philadelphia stayed a game ahead of Dallas in the NFC East, but of course they've got the head-to-head at the end of the season that we'll talk about. That's going to be a big deal, and so they can't rest. And Detroit dropped back and allowed everybody to catch up with them, basically. Chicago and Green Bay and everybody made moves on Detroit. So once again, the NFC North is just wide open.
This is probably the most interesting division to watch in the NFC currently, about who's going to win it, because there's basically 3 teams who can all still win the division. And it seems likely that the second placed team in the NFC North won't get the wild card. So this could be a very interesting race till the end.
Well, the forgotten stepchild in that division, Minnesota, played an exciting game as well, just barely losing to Baltimore, 26-29, in a game that sounds like it was all about offense, but really was defense for the first 58 minutes. Defense and snow and cold. It was 12-7 with 2 minutes and 7 seconds left, and then it was 29-26, 2 minutes and 7 seconds later, and there was no overtime to add to that padding. It was crazy.
Actually, I was when the game was played, I was watching the other game, the Philly game, but I followed on my tablet on the side. I followed this course, and it was pretty much of the game. I was like, oh yeah, I'm happy to watch this game here, the Philly game, instead of that one, because this seems to be a little bit boring.
Yes.
And in the end, I was just, I thought there was some error with the application I was using to display this course, because it just kept on jumping up and up and up. Amazing game in the end, and it seems like the Ravens are kind of the team that draws these kind of scores, because they had it in the Super Bowl once, right? When there were like 3 scores in 3 plays. And it was the same here.
I think what I liked about it best was that it wasn't just one thing or one way. It wasn't just one team. Both teams, scoring. Both we had a kickoff return for a touchdown. We had a 51-yard rushing touchdown at that with that much time left. They were still rushing and they scored. You had some long throws. You had a bit of a drive. At the end, it took 3 or 4 passes for Flacco to score that final touchdown. It was really impressive on both teams' parts in some ways, and it was just riveting.
Actually, on the other hand, if I was Baltimore, because the Vikings are pretty much out of the playoff race, but if I was Baltimore and they're still in the race, I would be wondering on how this defense is going to stop anyone. Because if you want to go to the playoffs and you need to win out. If they play like this for the next whole game, they're going to lose by 100 points. So that's something they need to be concerned about and something that they need to work on until the next game, I guess.
Bad defense. It's kind of been a common theme through a lot of the NFL season for a lot of teams, but we did have a game which keyed primarily on that. Another game that really mattered. San Francisco 19, Seattle 17, which really saw almost no scoring in the second half. Both teams really bore down, and it wasn't until really the very end when they were driving for field goals to win the game that we saw any scoring.
Actually, I think San Francisco showed how to beat Russell Wilson. You just need to have just 4 rushes, so you don't do a lot of blitzing, because that's when he really gets great. He's good at improvising. He finds the open man in the backfield. If there is a blitz, obviously someone is not covered in the backfield, and he uses to just scramble out and find a guy and throw to him for a big gain, or on the read option, run himself. So what San Francisco did, they rushed just 4, and usually had 1 spy, or sometimes even 2 spies from the linebackers just standing and waiting to see what Wilson is going to do, and go for him if he sees that he's trying to run. And this worked pretty well, actually, through most of the game. There were just, I'd say, 2 breakdowns by the San Francisco defense, but that's okay if you have an offense on the other side that's not the big scoring offense, but who basically strive from being able to run on you, to score on you with every single play. You just don't know which one it's going to be.
Yeah.
It can happen that you have 2 broken plays on defense side, and okay, you get 14 points, in this case 16 points, but that's basically it, and you just need to score more than 16, and obviously that's possible even on the Seattle defense.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't really change things in regards to the playoff picture, except for it keeps, San Francisco in the driver's seat as far as picking up that 5th or 6th spot. But it does make things interesting. It does show that Seattle can be beat. We've seen it a couple times this season now, and we've seen a couple ways to do it. And it's gonna be an interesting playoff run here coming up soon.
Actually, it's for Seattle, they don't win with a huge margin of victory against the weaker teams. We've seen that at home against Tampa Bay, for example. And they got some games they might not think to be the huge ones for themselves coming the next 3 weeks. So if they lose the one or the other, they still might lose that home field advantage to New Orleans, even though they beat the hell out of them previous week. And also there's at least a theoretical possibility that San Francisco wins the NFC West still, where San Francisco obviously needs to win out, and I think Seattle would need to lose all 3. So I don't think this is going to happen.
No, probably not.
But still, the home field advantage for Seattle, and I think that's a big thing for them, because obviously they're really strong when they're playing in Seattle.
Yeah.
Might make a huge difference for them.
Very true. Speaking of New Orleans, they had their own big game, a showdown with upstart Carolina Panthers squad that has kind of been the toast of the town for the second half of the season. New Orleans ended up crushing them 31-13. Wasn't the world's biggest surprise coming back to the Dome, and the fact that New Orleans was coming off a tough loss.
Yeah, we didn't know what New Orleans team we're going to see this week. If we had seen the one from Seattle last week, I don't think that stood a chance against the Panthers. On the other hand, we've seen the Panthers defense do better
Sure.
this season. I think they've primarily lived and won because their defense was really strong, and their offense did just enough to win those games. And in this case, neither the offense could do enough to win a game, because with 13 points you're not going to win a lot of games. And also the defense, when the opponent has 31 points, obviously at the same time you're not going to win a lot of games. So they actually struggle on both sides of the ball. Still, I think they already got the wild card. It's not secured yet. It's not. There's a theoretical possibility that they're going to lose it, but I think they're in the driver's seat for the wild card, and actually very likely have the number 5 seed already.
Yeah, for me it was not a big surprise. Like I say, I kind of predicted last week that we'd see New Orleans blowout, or at least a high-scoring game. But yeah, seeing Breeze, it was interesting that he actually kind of remembered he had wide receivers for the first time in a while, and threw to Marcus Colston a couple times, and so yeah, that was good, and they've got such a multifaceted attack that when you open up another dimension like that, it shows just how dangerous they can be. Gonna be a tough out in the playoffs, let's say. Chicago 45, Dallas 28. The Monday night game, the last game we're going to talk about. Dallas's defense just historically bad.
That's a record-setting defense for Dallas. Actually, only bad thing for Dallas is they're setting records for the opponent every week.
Yeah,
it was crazy. The second time of the season already, as far as I know, that they couldn't stop a single drive from scoring. Well, actually, they did stop the last drive because it was a kneel down only.
Technically,
but other than that, every drive went for some points. And I think the only reason this was not like 100-7 or so was that the Bears defense is not the Bears defense we've seen in the past decades, let's say, where they had a stellar defense. Also, they couldn't stop Dallas very well.
I guess going forward, there's a big question too with Chicago as to whether or not they continue with McCown or bring Cutler back. The coach continues to say Cutler's the man when he's fully healthy and he's practiced for a whole week, and kind of puts a lot of qualifiers around it that
this is gonna be a tough decision for the coaches. McCown's been really, really good. On the other hand, he's 34, so he's not the future for the team.
Yeah.
I don't know how Cutler is, but he's gonna be around 30. So there's still some more years that you can count on him than you can count on McCown. On the other hand, McCown will be the cheaper player at least, unless they make it to the Super Bowl and win it. He's gotta probably ask for a new contract if he's the quarterback there. So that's a very tough decision. And if you see them, if you see the Bears playing currently, and if you listen to the commentary on TV, where obviously they have contact the players and the coaches, everybody on the Bears offense, basically on the whole team, seems to stand behind McCown. So and Cutler sitting there on the sideline, like kind of alone. We've seen that in past years already.
Sure.
So he doesn't seem to be the most liked guy in the team, which could also be a factor in that decision. And we'll see what they do. And
well, of course, it's another week with another December loss for Tony Romo, which isn't really fair given that there was 45 points put up on the board against him. But you know, in the narratives of the NFL, fair doesn't really factor into it. So
yeah, that's true. But you gotta feel pity for him. I mean, there's absolutely nothing he could have done to win this game.
Yeah.
I think there were just 2 or 3 drives when actually the Cowboys were stopped. He didn't have that game-losing interception in the end. Nothing.
No.
Still, everybody's gonna say at least starting next week or next season, the latest, he can't win in December.
If the team doesn't make the playoffs. I mean, right now, if they win out, they control their own destiny. If they don't make the playoffs, then once again, you're going to hear it. Because strong at the start of the season, weaker at the end. Overall team record, quarterback gets the glory, quarterback gets takes the hit. So, okay. Well, we'll take just a moment's break and be right back with you guys and talk about the upcoming games for Week 15.
See you later.
And we are back. Going to talk a little bit now about some upcoming Week 15 matchups, some of the better ones, and give you our take on it. And we're going to start with one that's maybe not so great on the field, but everybody's talking about the off-the-field antics of the Washington Redskins. We're about to take on Atlanta in the Georgia Dome.
Yeah, it's the Shanahan family versus the Snyder family, it seems.
Yes, exactly.
Nobody's talking about the actual game, I think.
No.
Everybody's talking about RG3 being inactive.
Yeah.
He's not even a backup for this game. We see a stellar comeback by Rex Grossman, actually, on the bench. And Kirk Cousins taking the game. And there's been a lot of talk about what actually happened last season, where this season everybody said they brought him back too early, so that's why he got the serious injury that kept him off the field until the end of training camp, actually. I think he started the first game in the season, I'm not quite sure.
He did, yeah.
But he was missing most of training camp. And everybody was putting the blame on Mike Shanahan. And now that there's more talks about it, it seems like it was actually Mr. Snyder and RG3 himself to blame, because they seem to be concerned about Kirk Cousins performing well when he was the starter. And now we're going to see the switch again. And
yeah, there's a lot of drama there, and it's kind of fitting that they play in the same division as Dallas, so we got the two craziest owners there together.
Yeah.
Now that, Oakland's no longer in the mix.
Yeah, well, they still have the strange decisions in Oakland. They just don't have the face for,
they don't have the face for
to blame.
You still got the Colts with Irsay, it's kind of fun. But Snyder and Jones, they're kind of their own little show there, their own little sideline in the NFC East. The game itself, I'm going to say, just to make things more interesting, that Washington pulls off the win in Atlanta under Kirk Cousins and makes everything just that much more
actually if it's about winning the game, I think it's the right decision, because RG3 has been everything but stellar this year. I mean, it's not been all bad, and he could have had some more help from his offensive line, and also the receivers, they're mediocre at best, I'd say.
Yeah.
But still, I think the switch itself, it's not an all bad decision, and we'll see how it works out. And Atlanta struggling all season long, being the first team eliminated from the playoffs.
Yeah.
It's no surprise if Washington wins this one, I guess.
Green Bay at Dallas. One more chance for Tony to break through in the late season. One more chance for Green Bay to prove they're not just the Aaron Rodgers show. At least,
well, I thought we don't know if they can prove that, because
he may be back,
as far as I read, Aaron Rodgers has taken the first team reps already in practice this week. So he might actually start. The only thing is he's not been medically cleared for the game, so we'll probably find out only minutes or hours before the game. If Rodgers is there, I think Green Bay will take it. Both teams actually need it to stay in the race for the playoffs.
They really do, yeah.
I think that Green Bay actually needs it a little bit more than Dallas does. Because Dallas probably can count on the fact that the Eagles also will lose one more game, and then it's going to be the showdown in the last week. The Packers, they need to win out, because they have the Bears and the Lions.
Right.
At least one of these two teams is going to stay ahead of them if they don't win out. And yeah, there's probably not going to go a wild card to the NFC North, so you need to win the division, and you need to win out from here on, I think.
So who are you calling?
Tough one, really tough one. Can I make this depending on if Rodgers is playing?
Sure.
If Rodgers is playing, then I'd say that the Packers will take it. If not, I think it's going to go Dallas's way.
I think I'm going to concur there with that caveat. Although I think that'll happen. Although I think it's going to be close either way. I think even if Rodgers comes back, shaking that rust off. It's going to be a close game, and Dallas has shown they can put points on the board with anybody, so it's going to be close. The Jets are at Carolina, and it doesn't seem like we should be talking about this one, but the Jets are still in the playoff race. They're only a game out in the AFC. And, of course, Carolina, as we said, hasn't actually locked up anything. They're still in the hunt for the division lead, and they're still in the driver's seat, like we said, for the wild card slot. So
they're one game behind the Saints. If they take 2 or 3 more wins, it's probable, or let's not say probable, but it's possible that they win the division, giving them at least 1 home game in the playoffs, which is a good thing to have, obviously.
Sure, of course.
And on the other hand, the Jets, they're only 1 game behind the Wildcats in the AFC, and I think the one thing we need to see and to watch in this game is, will Geno Smith be the starting quarterback? Will we see the comeback of stellar Mark Sanchez? Will we see somebody else there? And will Rex Ryan be still the head coach come Monday? So
it's the second dramatic quarterback coach shuffle that we've got on the slot. Yeah. I think Carolina wins this one. I think they win it handily, and I think the quarterback coach controversy in the Jets gets ratcheted up another notch. That would be my prediction for the week.
You usually don't fire coaches as long as they're still in the playoff hunt, and even if they lose, the Jets will still be for 1 more week at least, because mathematically they can only be 2 games behind after this week.
Right.
And there are 2 more games to play, so there will be no hunt, and you don't fire coaches when you're in the playoff hunt.
No, it would be
so
silly.
Rex Ryan is going to survive at least another week. Other than that, I don't want to make any predictions for the Jets. I just want to make the prediction that the Panthers will win this one. I think there's no chance that the Jets will take this.
The Monday night game pits Baltimore on a little bit of a streak themselves, getting back into the race, staying on the fringes, at Detroit, a team that just can't seem to handle success.
Yeah, it's surprising to watch the Lions. They do so well in a few games, and then next week they look like a totally different team, and nobody knows why. There's the games where Megatron just picks balls off the air at will, and then the next game there's nothing you can do to that doesn't even get thrown to, and you don't know why, because they usually don't care if he's in coverage or in double coverage or triple coverage. They just throw in his way, and then he picks it off the air, and that's it. It didn't work like that last week, and still the running game for Detroit is a concern.
I think the difference for me is they get back home, they get into the nice warm air in the Dome Stadium, and we see the Detroit machine kick it into high gear again for 1 week maybe, and then they'll probably be back off the the grid again. But yeah, I see Detroit winning this one, and Baltimore just can't seem to punch its way much above 500, so they'll make things exciting in the AFC, although I do expect them somehow, when the dust settles at the end, to actually be the 6th wild card, or the 6th seed in the AFC.
Actually, even though they're most of the teams in the wild card race in the AFC are not very much above 500, with the first wild card actually locked down in the AFC West, but the other one, they're like 6-7 wins currently.
Yeah.
Baltimore could get this one, but also you can't forget about the Dolphins,
the Chargers.
Yeah. The Jets, we said it before, even though I think they have the worst chance of actually taking it. So things will be interesting, but just not in this game, I think. I'll concur with you. This is going to go Detroit's way.
Okay, for the rest of the games on the week, we're just going to bang right through them and pick winners and losers and go from there. Let's start with Chicago at Cleveland. The Bears.
Chicago.
Chicago at Cleveland. All right.
Chicago Bears.
Chicago. Yes, me too. Houston at Indianapolis. Sounds better than it is, doesn't it? We still kind of from last year.
You always have the Texans of last year in your mind when you're talking about them, but they're so bad this year. So Colts.
Yeah, Indianapolis has really disappointed me recently, and I really thought early in the season that they might be the team to beat Denver and represent the AFC, but
well, they actually beat Denver, but
right now they look like they're just lucky to be in the division that they're in.
Yeah.
Indianapolis wins it by default. New England at Miami.
I think the Patriots haven't lost to Miami in a while, and I think they're gonna keep it this way even with Gronkowski out. I think Brady will pick their defense apart.
I hate to pick Miami, but I hate to just agree on everything, so I'm going to go with Miami on this one. Let's call for the in-division upset. Looking past them, got the injuries. Philly, Minnesota.
Philly. I think the Philly offense obviously has got into gear. They seem to have found a way to really get it working in the NFL, and they're gonna do it this week too.
Philly. Seattle at the Giants. Seattle. San Fran at Tampa Bay. The Niners.
Obviously, I gotta say San Francisco. But even if I wasn't a San Francisco fan, I'd say San Francisco is just a better team.
Yeah, there's a reason why we chose the other games to talk about. San Francisco. Buffalo at Jacksonville.
This could be interesting. I'd say Jacksonville here. It's not like the beginning of the season when we always just said whoever was playing against the Jaguars wins.
Right.
They seem to have found a way, and they obviously weren't as bad as their record in the beginning was. And so I think they're going to take this one.
I'll go Buffalo. What the heck? Kansas City at Oakland.
Kansas City.
Arizona at Tennessee.
Tough. I think it's Arizona. But it's going to be a close game, I think.
Yeah, Arizona. New Orleans at St. Louis.
It's not going to be a fun day for the New Orleans offense and for Drew Brees, but still they will manage to win this, I think.
They'll find a way. Cincinnati at Pittsburgh.
Cincinnati is another one of these on-off teams where you just don't know which team you're going to see this weekend. So that's why it's a tough call. Otherwise, I'd just have said Cincy, no way.
Sure.
I'd just bet on seeing the good Bengals this week. So
I agree, but I'm going to go with Pittsburgh. I agree with them being up and down. I think it's a down week. Okay. Thanks for joining us. That's all we got this week, and we'll see you next week on Touchdown. Bye-bye.